Instant solar radiation analysis in Revit. This is the second video, and we'll look at some of the settings and the parameters here. So let's go into Revit, and here's where we left off last time, where we've got a we've carried out an analysis, and we actually put it on a sheet. And we just use the default settings, and we'll have a look now at customizing some of those settings. So first thing I'll do is duplicate my view, right click on that, duplicate with detailing, and let's give it another name, and let's rename it. Let's just call that number 2. And as I said before, you could always rename that with a slightly more meaningful name. So there that is. I'll close that other one down in the background, maximize that. Because we duplicated the view, the analysis has been lost. And I'll just quickly go back in and select those faces. Using tab here to get tab through the faces that I want. Okay, so let's just go with those. Maybe have this one as well. That one there. Okay, and we need to remember to click on the finish up here, and we'll analyze that. Okay, so we've got the analysis as before. Here's our key, which I'll just drag across there. I'll just close the dialog box there. And now that you've run the analysis, if you go into your properties of the view, there is an analysis display dialog here. So you can actually change the settings there without having to necessarily input the analysis faces and run the analysis again. Okay, so if we go into here, analysis display style here. Okay, and if we click in that, there is a little drop down box, and if I probably just drag that to the side slightly so you can see what we're doing. Now we had selected the default, solar analysis default, and there are a number of other defaults in there which we can choose, and you can, over on the right under settings, you can configure the different settings for those defaults. So what I'll do is, rather than start changing the defaults, I will make a duplicate. So I'll go down here and make a duplicate of that, and we'll call that Solar Study 1. And you see immediately you've got some more options here. Coloured surface, markers with text, diagram with text, vectors with text, deformed shape. So you can choose some different styles here. We'll just stick with coloured surface for now. Okay, and we'll apply that. Okay, and we have to go back to the main menu. We've hit apply there, and you see it's changed our colour scheme. Okay, just going to drag that over a little bit, and we'll do that again. So we'll go back into the analysis display settings. We are under Solar Study. Let's go into Solar Study and let's look a little bit at that. So we've got different colour ranges. Here we can choose maximum, minimum colour ranges, gradients. We can go in and configure the colours. and you pretty much do what you like with that. I mean, to be honest, I normally just stick with the defaults, but yeah, you can go in and do that. If I just click apply, you see that it's using a different color scheme, and that is reflected in the key. If we go back into the ranges, click apply there, we've just got it set with 2 different colors in there, but you can add more if you wanted. Apply that, and we get a sort of few different colors on there, and we can keep going with that, which I find actually is quite useful. If I just accept all of that, because sometimes it's quite helpful, because rather than having a whole range of gradient of colors, you can have perhaps just 5 simplified colors that help you to understand the data. Now, the other thing I want to just slightly change on here is we've actually got ambient shadows on at the moment, and it sometimes is easier just to take those off. So if I go under graphic display options here, and we've got a number of different style types here. We've got sketchy lines, shadows. I've got ambient shadows on. I'm just going to try switching those off, and you see the effect there that we lose those kind of soft shadows, and in many respects I think it gives a clearer visualization of those results there. Okay, let's go back into our analysis settings over here. Go back into the one that we've created. We've got show grid lines. Colors we've already looked at. Gradient, depending on your preferences. Then we've got the legend, and in here we can change the size of the text in the legend, units, name, show description, rounding, a few other different settings there. You can play around with that, and you can configure the legend completely. Okay, so that's using a sort of color scale, but if you want a slightly more accurate data display, you probably want to see the actual values. So at the moment with the color scheme, you would have to kind of look at the key, understand that that sort of pink is 54, and that will give you an idea about the radiation levels. Now let's look at putting a grid of points on. So again, if we go back into our analysis display, and we go back into our display style, and this time let's duplicate the one that we had. Let's call it Solar Study Points. This time we'll change it to markers with text to get some points on. Okay, we'll just click apply. Okay, apply. So we've now got points. Instead of the coloured surfaces, we've got these points, and the points still relate to the key, but they're not terribly useful because they've not got any number values next to them. So let's just configure that. Go back into analysis display settings. Go back into your style here again, and go into your settings here. You can change the shape, circle, square, triangle. You can change its size in millimeters. And this one under here, text label on markers, change it to show all. And you can change the text size. Let's knock that back to 2.5 millimeters and try that out. You can change the rounding. I'm going to leave that at 0 decimal places. Hit apply there. Okay. And if we just zoom in a bit, we've now got a grid of points with the actual measurements, the actual data. So if we go back and find our key, we're talking about kilowatt hours per meter squared from 0 to 272. And if we zoom in now, you can see we've actually got the values in kilowatt hours on the points. And that can be really useful. Now, probably to clean this up, let's go back in and just select slightly fewer faces, because having all of those faces selected can be a bit confusing. So user selection, you get this little warning message as always. Let's just select, let's have the Arts Tower face. And we'll keep our multi-day settings the same. Okay, and I forgot to click finish up here. So we've done that. We can change our grid. I'm going to try that a little bit closer together at about 2 meters. Okay, and let's just run that. Okay, it's not set in our it's not set in our correct display style, but we can just change that as we did before. Close that one down. Go back into edit. It's created in the default. Change that. Let's change that to our study points. Click OK. Apply that. There's our points, but possibly put those a bit too close together. But a few options here. We could change the scale and rerun the analysis. So let's try that. Let's change that to 1 to 200. Zoom in a bit. So, you know, that's very detailed. It's probably slightly too many points, but if you were looking at a really kind of detailed analysis of a building facade, then perhaps that would be useful data, because you can see that if we just zoom in on the bottom here, that we're going from sort of 126 kilowatt hours per square meter at the lower end of the Arts Tower, all the way up to 272 at the top. So we've got kind of double the amount of energy and daylight at the top of the Arts Tower as the base, and you might not expect that necessarily. And as we've discussed before, this is why building facades should probably vary across the facade, because the energy levels are very different. Okay, so we've done that. Let's get that onto a sheet. Maybe we can put that onto the same sheet that we've already used. Let's try that. Open that sheet again. That sheet's got a lot of space on it actually, but yeah, for the sake of it, Windows Tile, ZA, Zoom All. I'm going to pick up that key and drag it closer to my view there. Okay, and let's drag that view onto our sheet. It's probably going to be too big. Okay, there it is. Let's just drag it to the side a bit, and we'll have to just maximize that. We'll have to crop that. I'll show you how to crop an image there. I just kind of did that, but I'll come out of that. So we're in the sheet view, and there's our active view that we've brought in. Now, to crop it, what you have to do is first of all activate the view. Now, if you can right-click on the view and activate view, or you can actually just double-click on the view. If you then come down to the bottom here, we've got hide crop region, which will toggle between show and hide, and we've got do not crop. So I've got crop region visible, and we can now drag those points and just crop our view a little bit. Let's say to that view. Right click, deactivate view. As before, we've got the title, which is down here, which I showed you in the previous video, which we can just sort of resize a bit. ZZ. So there's our two views that we want to put on the sheet. That one really is too large. Let's drag that to the side for now. Drag this one, put that one on. And I think what we'll do is double click on this other view to activate it. We'll change its scale to 1 to 1000. Right click, deactivate view. Now we can just drag it to a slightly better position perhaps. Let's just put it down there. Just using my arrow keys on the keyboard there just to nudge it. So so there we are. We've positioned them both on the sheet. This is an A1 sheet, so if you zoom in, you can actually read the information. So we've got a grid of points giving us more precise information. We've also got the key for that, the color-coded key. We've got our winter cumulative view here, and this one we should rename. If we go over to the project browser, we can rename that something logical. So let's call it Solar Radiation 2 Arts Tower South. Okay. Winter cumulative. So they're both, these are both showing the same information actually, the winter cumulative, but just using different view settings to give a different kind of understanding to the data. Again, if we want to make a PDF of that sheet, I'll just hit save actually before we do that. We just do it the simple way through print, Microsoft Print to PDF. That should all be okay. Solar Radiation 2. There it is. So there's our PDF of that sheet now. Looks a bit blurry, but when we zoom in, I'm sure it's pretty clear. There we are. So there's a sort of basic sheet. Obviously, for your reports, you can be pasting these PDFs into a report, and all I'm doing here is showing the basic information, but you would be annotating and commenting on your results. You can try all sorts of things like changing the view, changing the simulation period, the view settings. You know, that's kind of down to you. But this video is more about showing the skills. Okay, I'm going to go back into our 3D view. In fact, I'll go into this one. No, sorry. I'll stick with this one. Maximize that. So this was the one. This is the view where we were purely looking at the Arts Tower, south facade. If we go back into our solar analysis toolbar, we've got export results to CSV. Now, what this will do is it will export the kind of raw data of your results in a CSV file that you can open in Excel. So let's call this Arts Tower South Winter Cumulative. Okay, I'll just save that. If we go and find that, which is here, open that in Excel. So what you've got now, it may not make a lot of sense to you as you see it, but you've got basically the data behind that analysis. And for each of these points, you've got an X, Y, and Z coordinate, and you've got the radiation level data, insolation here, as you see, 30 here. That's in kilowatt hours per square meter, up to 272, which I think was our high point. Now that's just the raw data. I'm not really going to show you what you can do with that, but if any of you are taking the BIM module or the parametric architectural geometry module, then you may find it interesting to use this data in those modules, because you can start to connect this data with all sorts of complex automated elements, family parameters, etc. And it really becomes a kind of another way of working, where you're linking analysis data into design elements, design families. Okay, that's not the scope of this module, but I just wanted to show you how to get to that point of exporting the CSV file.